Balthasar Kormakor's Everest recounts the 1996 Mount Everest disaster, where numerous lives were lost during a climbing expedition. At the time, it was the most amount of lives lost during an expedition on the mountain. Mount Everest is the highest point on the planet Earth, and many people consider it a challenge to make it to the top. Expert climbers, amateurs, all want to be able to say that they climbed to the very top of Mount Everest. And as we see in the film, it's a very difficult climb. It's definitely not one for the faint of heart. So you got to ask, it's like, why would anybody want to do this? And obviously the easiest answer is because it's there, which is actually stated in the film itself. But because it is based on a true story and covers taken from various accounts of the events, if you are unaware of said events, there is a level of suspense that could be found in the film. But again, if you are aware of events, incidences, people involved, then you probably already know how the story is going to unfold. So for myself, I really knew nothing about what was going to transpire. So there are many good things about this film, and there's some not so good things about this film. As a film that's based on a true story, you figure you're basically left to wonder, okay, who's going to live, who's going to die? Because obviously you know people are going to die, but you don't know who. The film does a very good job of setting up its characters, and there are several characters, many characters in this film, and every actor does a fine job of portraying those characters. And when we finally get to the climb, you're caught up in the beauty of the environment and the look. I mean, the cinematography is fantastic in this film, but for some strange reason, you just don't get the sense of the danger. I didn't feel any sense of vertigo, considering how high up in the mountain are. Like, I think they said 27,000 feet or something like that. I didn't get the sense of the scale of the height that they're at, and I think that kind of dampened the excitement for me in watching the film. When the shit hits the fan, essentially, you would think, oh my god, this is it. But it's like, but I kind of was able to distance myself from it and watch it like I'm there, but it was just like, oh. I guess the problem it's very hard for the situation. It was hard to convey just how dangerous it was. Like, for example, in Gravity, you knew you were in outer space. You knew there was no one for Sandra Bullock to turn to but herself, and you knew there's nothing to do. But here in Everest, for a common folk layman person, you're like, well, why don't they just like slide down the mountain or something? Why can't they? Well, yeah, there's a storm. Why can't they just do this? Why can't they just do that? I don't get it. And then there are events where Jason Clarke's character, Rob Hall, basically describes the symptoms that people face as they're climbing the mountain, and we are shown these people exhibiting these symptoms. So, of course, foreshadowing that it's like, well, yeah, people are going to have these symptoms, but when they happen, it's not like we're like, oh my god, how are they going to get out of this? But I was like, oh, okay. The film has an all-star cast, and as I mentioned, every person does a fantastic job of portraying their characters. The film features Jake Gyllenhaal, Keira Knightley, Robin Wright, Josh Brolin, Sam Worthington, Jason Clarke, as I mentioned, Emily Watson, who else? John Hawkes. They're all very good in their roles, and they're really the film takes a long time to set up these characters. And when we see the hike, or the climb, I should say, not the hike, when they make the climb and reach the summit, and it's like, okay, they made it, cool. Now the real disaster hits, and then a plus and a minus is, yes, there is confusion when the storm hits, but it gets further convoluted when you're trying to comprehend how one group made it here, and it seems like another group is only like hundreds of yards behind. How come they didn't make it? And I guess the effectiveness of showing the space and the distance that these people had to travel was lost. And I don't know if that was in the editing process or just the way it looked. But yeah, the tension was certainly affected by that. There's a moment in the film, definitely want to avoid any spoilers, but there's a moment in the film that just felt so stereotypical, big budget, happy ending Hollywood movie moment. Mind you, this is based on a true story, but I guess it felt like the way it was presented just felt too movie-like. It just felt too Hollywood, and it just like rang like a false note instead of things like, oh wow, you're like thinking it's like, well, that was kind of cheesy. And another moment that sort of correlates to that is something that happens at the end of the film. Again, not giving anything away, but there's something that happens at the end of the film that gives you a false sense of hope that what you saw before is going to happen here, but that doesn't occur. You're like, wait a minute, okay, and it's just, again, I guess you can just like lay that on the editing and how events were unfolding, but overall the film is strong up to a point, and it's really good. I mean, the effects are fantastic. The danger is there, but again, you don't feel the tension. Well, for me at least, I didn't feel the tension of it, and the performances are really strong. So I would give Everest a 6.5. 6.5 out of 10. It's a beautifully shot film, definitely one worth seeing in 3D. I believe the film is actually opening a week before its wide release in IMAX screens only, so that's definitely worth seeing in IMAX 3D, as I did see it in IMAX 3D, and it looks spectacular. But if you don't wait, it comes out the following week in general release in 2D and 3D. But it's definitely worth seeing in 3D, because the 3D really gives you depth to the vast environment that you're in. But again, for me, it wasn't as tension filled as the subject matter would convey or you would expect. I really enjoyed the performances, and I thought that the visual effects were strong. But again, I was hoping for something a little more nerve wracking, like say Alive, which came out in the mid '90s, about the plane crash in the Andes Mountains, where the soccer team had to essentially eat the dead in order to survive, something like that. But Everest is definitely worth checking out. Just be prepared that again, for me, it wasn't that suspenseful, but for you it might be. So if you like my review, hit the like button below. I added a link to the trailer for Everest in the description box. If you haven't already subscribed to my channel, please do, so you can stay on top of my reviews as they come in. If you've seen Everest, or you're looking forward to Everest, or what do you think you want to see in Everest, please comment below and let me know. And until next time, keep your chin up and aim high.